All right, so let's look at science for Monday, December 7th, 2020. You're going to be looking at Celsius degree temperature. You're going to look at reading it and graphing it as well, okay? So one thing we want to know is that temperatures are measured in two separate degrees, Celsius and Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit generally measures at a higher temperature, more like in a rapid way, and your Celsius measures a kind of lower temperature. So even if they're on the same exact temperature setting, your Fahrenheit may read in the 90s and your Celsius will probably read in like the 35. And so that's just how they measure in different forms of measurement, okay? So we're reading specifically on the Celsius side. Now, with the printout, it may be a little difficult to see your numbers, but I'm going to fill them in for you here so you can kind of have an idea of what your numbers are saying. So I'm going to zoom in as far as I can to not be so high, okay? My Celsius is starting at negative 30. And then I go up to my next line here, which is going to be negative 20. When I go to my next line here, that's negative 10. Up here is going to be 0. So I'm counting by tens over here. But if you notice, I'm counting at a much larger gap than my Fahrenheit is counting. Okay? This is going to go to 10. This one to 20. This one to 30. And this is 40. Now on my Fahrenheit, the gap is much closer together. So even though I'm starting at negative 20 here, and this one goes to negative 10, by the time I get to 0, I'm already pretty close to my negative 20 on my Celsius side, okay? And then we're just going to keep counting up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, now once again, even though I have both Fahrenheit and Celsius on this particular thermometer, I am reading Celsius only. So if it gives you a little tip or hint, then you could actually go through and just circle all of your Celsius so you don't forget that I am focusing strictly on Celsius. Okay? All right, so let's look at this one here. I'm going to come up to where my measurement stops. I'm going to come over to my Celsius side. My Celsius side says that I am at 20 degrees Celsius. Same thing over here. Let's fill in our chart. Once again, starting at negative 30. Let me rewrite that one. That one looks a little funny. So once again, we're at negative 30. Negative 20, negative 10, 0, 10, 20, 30, and 40. And honestly, since I'm just working on Celsius, I'm not even going to fill in my Fahrenheit. I'm going to stop here at Celsius. Now, looking at my left side, I'm going to come up here to where my line is and come over to my Celsius side, which says 0. So I'm at 0 degrees Celsius for number 2. And you're just going to do the same thing moving over to number 3. Once again, starting at negative 30, negative 20, negative 10, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. And work your way up to determine what Celsius that would be. Okay? All right, going over to my next Celsius page. For this particular one, you're going to write the temperature shown on each thermometer. Now, I don't want you to get confused. It is a snippet of the temperatures on a whole thermometer. So they're giving you just a small section of the temperatures, of the thermometer, and you have to determine what temperature it is. This is strictly a Celsius thermometer. There is no Fahrenheit side whatsoever. All of this thermometer is Celsius. What they have done is they put the numbers on opposite sides so you don't kind of jam them together and get confused. So this side says that this entire line here is negative 20. This entire line here is negative 10. This entire line here is 0. Okay? So this whole thing is a Celsius thermometer. Do not get confused. I'm going to come here and work my way up. Now, I don't actually get all the way up to my 10. I stop right here below it. Now, to determine what my Celsius is going to be, I have to kind of use a little bit of my fraction sense. So in between my 0 and my 10, I notice that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Okay, there's 5 spaces. So if I have in between 0 and 10, there's 5 spaces, then that means that each space is going to be 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Now, my space stops at my 4th section or my 4th 2. So I'm going to take that and go 4 times 2, which gives me 8 degrees Celsius. So once again, each space represents 2 total spots, okay? So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit closer so you can see that. I'm going to go on to the next one so we can get a better understanding. Once again, this entire section represents 0, both sides, okay? This is completely a Celsius chart. Now, each space represents 2 till we get to my next one. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now, I come up and I start at 10 here automatically. So I'm not going to start at 2. I'm going to actually count up from 12, 14, 16. So this one is 16 degrees Celsius. All right? One more, and then I'm going to move on. This is negative. It's still all the Celsius chart, but instead of me counting up, I am actually going to be counting down because I'm at a negative space, okay? So, I'm here. Excuse me. I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to go negative 20. Even though each space is still representative of 2, I'm going to subtract 2 from each one until I get to my positive side, since I'm still on the negative side. So I'm going to go negative 18, negative 16. Or I can just start right here on my 0 and count up by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. The answer is still going to be negative 16 degrees Celsius, okay? And for our last Celsius activity, you're going to be actually graphing the Celsius degree for yourself, okay? So this one says 22 degrees Celsius. I'm going to come up till I find 22 degrees Celsius right here. And then, honestly, I'm just going to shade in my thermometer. Okay, so Miss Hur's going to wrap this up because she wants to make sure that she has the whole video posted for you. If you have questions, email me, rheard-hixon.rgshva@gmail.com. Call or text 256-513.